traders. I am Antoine Farrar. Welcome back to another video with Digital Goatz Academy. Welcome to our market forecast segment. So pretty much today is where we pretty much predict or forecast, analyze the market in order for us to be able to find some positions for us to take advantage of. Now, Monday and Tuesday is kind of like questionable days as a trader because the market hasn't really filtered in any of the data from like the previous week or any of the heavy news that's normally coming in. So, Wednesdays tend to be, well, towards the end of Tuesday, we tend to get a lot more clarity on what direction that the market is trying to go or what structure that the market is trying to form, things like that. So obviously, if you following this channel, obviously, we talk about indices here. So that's what we're going to discuss indices right now, S&P 500. So S&P 500 did drop out of that gap that it made Sunday, right? So it did close below Sunday's candle, but we are back at previous levels of structure, right? So what S&P did today was that pretty much Monday it pushed up. So Monday it pushed up, and then now we're in Tuesday. Today the market blew through all that, pretty much that gap that it made during the reset yesterday, and then blew through the gap that the market made, which was Sunday. Now we're back at the last level of structure that we moved from, which was what? Consolidation, right? So as you can see, earlier today, this data was a swing low, but as you can see, the market decided to collect this data on this side, well, collect this equity on this side. So, to me, it's still bullish. I mean, I haven't changed like my direction overall on what indices are trying to do. It's just what they're doing in between. We know that they're probably going to continue to push up, but what are they doing in between? We do have a lot of levels below here that price didn't retest. Now, the thing that does have like my basically my attention focused on is that this whole area of S&P right here. This was consolidation, right? So we didn't have a pullback back into Sunday's gap, which was 713. I'm glad I marked that up. So we didn't have a push back down into that area. I don't think that we'll push back down into those areas because those are way lower areas than what we came from. I'm just pointing out that that could be a possibility because we haven't had no type of pullback. This would make sense to clear out all this equity in order to correct the market, and actually have it buying back up. But I'm just saying that because again, there's a possibility that the market can drop lower than what we expected, but we're still bullish overall because the market has been buying up since pretty much June 25th or yeah, June 20, no, June 22nd. The market has been buying up. So if we do get a pullback down to this zone, which, we're looking at where the gap is at, where the market is at currently. Now, we do have 5 minutes until the market opens up. I normally do this before the market resets back at 6 p.m. Eastern time. But, you know what I'm saying? I decided to, well, one, I was running behind, but I also decided like we're about to go into the market session. So it is good to see how the market responds live. I mean, that'll only give us a little bit of data, but it's still good enough information for us to use the rest of this week, right? So we are currently at consolidation. Now, my first focus for me is this market going to reject this consolidation zone? Now, here's the high. I mean, here's the low, which is, let's make this support, and here's the high. So this was the area that the market broke out of. As you can see, it did a shallow retracement. And the one thing that we do want to see when we get pullbacks is an actual candle pushed into the market and then, I mean, pushed into that zone and then run away from that area either by a wick. I would rather structure than just a wick because if it leaves a wick, then obviously what we didn't pay attention to this morning was that this area was probably going to get swept. But now that we're at like looking at it on a line chart, you're seeing structure, right? You're seeing structure being made in the market. So if you look, this is consolidation. Again, if we really just break it down like we did before, this is consolidation moving upward, but when we're looking at it at a candlestick form, it's obviously showing us that it's just consolidation, moving sideways to a degree. But you see, this is moving upward, and the fact that the market is pulling back. One thing I like to see about consolidation, especially when it's having like the version that moves up or down, does price push all the way back into the zone versus the high of it? So seeing that it pushed back into the zone, I'm more comfortable to say that this is probably our buy area. And the market is just retesting the high or retesting that consolidation zone as far as S&P is concerned. So I do think that we're bullish. I do think that we'll probably consolidate, play around here, and then anywhere in this general area, we'll probably have another buy opportunity that'll carry us up. That'll pretty much carry us up until London. So consolidation, and then maybe we start to buy up towards London. But if we don't buy up towards London, there's a possibility of another push down. So just to look at it overall, now I personally don't think that we're coming down to this level yet, if we do decide to come here. But I just want to throw that out there that that is the high that was broken out of. So if the market did decide to come all the way back down there, that would make perfect sense. You know what I'm saying? Because again, now that we have new data, it just makes it easier to understand the market. The one thing that I do want to point out is that if you start adding the EMAs, right? Where's my EMAs? You can see that on a 4 hour time frame, it's cutting through. One thing about the market is that when you're using the EMA indicator, you definitely want to see it cut through. So you can see that, down here it cut through. Obviously, it left the wick, it cut through, and it was still bullish. So it would drop and then cut through, and then the market will rise. So I'm expecting the same thing from this general area, just looking at the EMAs. Now, this is only on the 4 hour time frame. When you start to scale out to the higher time frames, you start to see there's a little bit of a difference of how the EMAs are actually gauged, right? So you see how the EMAs are spread. Now, if the market doesn't decide to buy from here, then we're probably looking for this market to come back all the way to these areas. And it makes more sense seeing it on a higher time frame. You see that you see that the market created a high and decided to start to push down. So normally what you want to see is either rejection off of this if it's not continuing. We don't know if it's continuing yet, you know what I'm saying? So, but if we're looking at a correction, normally the market tries to touch this EMA, well, the blue EMA, which would have been at 63.29. So I could definitely see something like that. But again, we've already identified there's a possibility of the market dropping. I don't know if we'll get that yet because I'm thinking that this is just a shallow retracement. And then if we do get that, it'll be like, I don't know, maybe like 2 weeks from now, because we are heading into the territory where they're looking for a rate cut in September. And normally, if you are going to get that, you're going to start to see signs as early as August. So if this is showing us that we are going to see a rate cut, well, we're going to want to have to, what the market is going to have to establish is some type of resistance up here, right? So once we get resistance, if we do get resistance, then we can start seeing that, okay, the market is probably selling back down to these lower areas. Don't look at it as, oh, well, the market is selling off. No, to these lower areas. And to be honest, if we're going to these lower areas, the only area that I would think that we would come back to is pretty much this gap. Anything lower, I would have to reassess, but we can come all the way back down to our original buy zone, which would have been, what is that? 62.20. I don't think we're coming back there. But I'm just prepping everybody that there's a possibility because of the talks of rate cuts. So if you see S&P start tanking, that's why. But S&P and the Nasdaq have all reached an all-time high. So normally when you reach an all-time high and it starts finding like its resistance, that's when you start having those major pullbacks. Not reversals, but just major pullbacks to correct the market and then keep it going up. So I'm looking at a buy zone from this area. The fact that on the 4 hour time frame, we are looking at it cutting through. So everything is just based off of, I mean, it's 6 o'clock now. So everything is based off of what the market is going to do once it opens up. And that should be like in the next second. So I actually want to see what S&P does on a daily. So let me see. You didn't open up yet? 6 o'clock. Hmm. Oh, there we go. How come it did it on that broker, but not this one? But anyway, so what I wanted to see is happening. That's crazy. But anyway, Vantage is showing us what we want to see. This is what I wanted to see. So I wanted to see the start of a bull market after the market reset at 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock. So we do have a gap up. Um, the market will probably want to collect that. Let's see. Eh, it could just pull back to that area because how small this gap is. So that could just be a shallow pullback once we get down there, but just make sure you pay attention to that. But that's kind of what the market did yesterday though. And then it dropped lower. But again, I don't want to, I'm not training my mind to start looking for sales until the market shows me, hey, it's time to start looking for sales. But if we're just going to annotate where this gap is at, what's my circle at? Make it purple. So that's where the gap is at on the 1 minute. So it should collect, the market should collect this after it's done consolidating and then push the market up. So that's what my expectations are for S&P 500. So I'm still bullish. We hit our target of 6404 and the market reversed from there. Let me see. 6422 to be honest. So 6422, our next target is 65K. I mean 6500. So once the market reaches 6,500, yeah, and then we have our pullback or whatever it's going to decide to do, obviously our next move is 7K. So it doesn't look like this, but this is trending up. So any push down, like don't be fooled by any push down. It seems violent. Well, compared to like US 30, S&P is not that violent, but US 30 is definitely violent. So as you can see, like I don't have a lot of annotations here. Um, what is that? 60, 17, and then 60, 20. No, 60, 17, and then 62, 20 was these buy zones that we had. So the market is still bullish, and I don't expect it to come back down no time soon. I know that there's been like pushes down, I mean, push down. I know the market has been pushing down, but as you can see, every push down has been like a buy back up or a pullback. So you can't really, you can't really get fooled by the the selling opportunities because they're coming so fast that you can't even really you had already had to been in it for you to be able to take advantage of it. So I'm not looking for sales every time the market pushes down. And the market pushes down lower than what I expected, what I'm trying to do is find out where the previous high is at or where support is at that it's trying to create. I'm not looking for sales. So anytime it pushes down and I know it may look violent, I'm looking for buys, you know what I'm saying, for S&P 500. Now, US 30 has kind of been doing its own thing, but again, when you look at it, the market always come back to areas that we've already identified. So when you look at this right here, well, we didn't even have to, if y'all saw when the market was like kind of frozen. So taking out the EMAs, we're still playing to this inverted head and shoulder because we're above, right? We're above the neckline, which the gap actually would have been the neckline for us. But I like when US 30 retests the gap because that gives me more confidence that what it's trying to do is correct itself and then buy back up. So you see the same thing with US 30. It started being bullish. Well, let's talk about what happened. Same thing. Market gapped up, definitely took advantage of that. I saw that there was going to be a possibility of a sell. I thought we were coming back to this consolidation period. Nah, the market decided to come 100%, well, over 100%, and then really collect this wick. So I really should have paid attention to that wick right there because I would have saw that maybe the market would have tried to collect at, I would have at least had my buy zone like halfway through the wick, which if this is US 30, like say like my buy zone is right there at 44,671, all right? 72. That would have been $72 on top of what? Your swap fee, if you, excuse me, your swap fee if you would have stayed in. So swap fees on US 30 is like almost $50. So technically you're looking at being down 150 on top of the payout, to pay into trading US 30, which is like 220 something dollars. So that's a big number to be down depending on what you have. Like if you have 1500, maybe that's not that bad, but you know what I'm saying? You definitely want to play the market smart and not like hold your trade where a swap fee can like hurt you more than it's actually helping you, right? So just looking at this market, I still think that we're up. The whole thing is that, well, the one thing is that even if this, like with this inverted head and shoulder, like I identified consolidation within it. So the fact that even if this isn't the inverted head and shoulder, the fact that it broke out of consolidation and it returned to basically retest, this is still confirming with what we want to see. Not to mention, we have a gap over here, which the market is maintaining above, which I like that. You know what I'm saying? So I'm still bullish on US 30. I do think that within this gap, this is our buy zone. So you just have to obviously see how the market is operating going into London. But we'll consolidate here, not much movement. And then from probably like pre-London, you might get some directional bias on what the market is trying to do. But you can see that of this entire move right here from this low to this high, that the market is currently at 50%, but it rejected the 618. What areas do we like to see? We like to see the 618 and the 50% for sure to say that, okay, these are areas that I'm looking at to buy. Do they guarantee areas to buy or sell? No, but these are pretty much our sweet spot areas where it's like we know the market has to at least travel to these positions. 50% is a given, you know what I'm saying? If you just looked at a candle and drew a line halfway through any candle that's strong, you can probably guesstimate where your 50% is at. You understand what I'm saying? So I'm looking at US 30 to remain bullish after it breaks out of this consolidation. Now, again, I did mention that there's a possibility that, we could push down slightly in order to draw people out that's buying here because we're going into London in the next couple of hours, and then London would buy back up. You see what I'm saying? But I do think that overall in this zone, in this area, this is our buyback zone because as you can see, these are previous highs that the market is currently rejecting. You know what I'm saying? So this is a high, this is a high, this is a high, this is a high. We do have lower highs right here, but I don't think that the market is going to be attracted to it based off of the pattern. One, the inverted head and shoulder pattern, but also the consolidation pattern. So, uh, yeah, I haven't changed my bias, you know what I'm saying? I know the market's kind of been fighting against us, but this is done with intent. You know what I'm saying? It's manipulation for the market to try to, one, again, they have to take our money to make money. So if the market isn't trying to take your money and just giving you money, just know another sweep is gonna happen. You know what I'm saying? You gotta think about all the traders that's trading that's getting these positions that's making money, and the banks are like, hold up, yo, y'all making too much money, or there's too many people buying at this position and stuff, or selling at this position. They're going to sweep you, or they're going to attempt to sweep you to either force you to get out your position, or just take you out of your position. And then normally what happens, that's when you see the market go in your direction, right? After it then took you out of position, or it took some money from you, or hit your stop loss, things like that. So that's what I'm looking at for US 30. I think that we'll consolidate in this area and then buy back up to this gap. Anything lower, we'll obviously have to reassess and analyze the market. But anything lower, to be honest, um, well, we did break out of this zone, so it could want to try to form another right shoulder, which I don't think so. But again, we'll see how this market is operating. One thing that I am like I wouldn't say nervous about, but I'm just paying attention to. If we do get negative data that is trying to drive this market down, then I would say that w- once we get that if we get that information, then this gap or this support will probably become our sell zone. You know what I'm saying? I'm not all the way convinced that this is an inverted head and shoulder, especially how far it came back. But the fact that it is retesting the neckline, I do see structure. And like I said, I didn't want to convince myself that this was an inverted head and shoulder until I seen more data, which we did get it. But the one thing that I was paying attention to that this is consolidation. The market did a shallow breakout to consolidation, even if this isn't an inverted head and shoulder. And by like the laws of the market should be respecting that consolidation somewhat. So either the high of it or the testing into the zone. You understand what I'm saying? And last but not least, GBP USD. So we've looked for sell opportunities within GU. So I do think that we'll probably, if we don't reject from here, I think we'll push a little bit back into the support structure and then the market will start selling off again. But to me, GU is overall bearish now. I did think that we were buying up because of that news from last week. Oh, excuse me. But if you could see, this is where I had my bullish flag, well, bearish flag, drawn up. And the market did go higher than what I expected. But I did annotate that there was a possibility that the market could come up to these zones because if you draw your fib on it for the previous data, you can see that it cut into the 50%. Cut into the 50% and it was shy. I don't know how I had this, but it looked a little bit different. But I know that we said again, what do we want to see? 50%. Look where the market came to from this zone. 50%, then decided to push down. Where is 50% at in orientation to everything? It's basically a previous low. How do I know that? Well, if I didn't know that from a candlestick chart, I can look at a line chart and see that these are previous lows. On top of what else? Sometimes this stuff doesn't jump out at you when jump out at you when what am I trying to say? When you're looking at it in candlestick form, right? So what is that right there? That's consolidation. What did the market do? Test back up to consolidation. What do we like to see? The market test back up to consolidation. You know what I'm saying? So turn it to a line chart and start seeing if you can spot this stuff because that's actually consolidation moving down. But look what the market came to. Came to the previous low. It tested into it. And as you can see, even when we look at the structure, we can see that there was a wick that pushed a little bit higher and then the market got brought down. And this is a evening star. I should have known that. This is an evening star. Even without this information, once I would have seen this candlestick pattern, I should have known, especially on the 8-hour time frame. This is the evening star pattern. That market is coming down. I did catch it. I did catch a sell like down here after I got all this information, but by then it's kind of like the move was gone. So I think that we might get a push back into this territory and then buy and then sell off from there. If not, sell off from the open of this currently right now. So you would just have to wait. Again, this isn't London session nor New York. So what zone or what time frame does GBP USD normally have momentum in? London and New York. So you can take advantage of it in London, and then you can take advantage of it pre-New York or whatnot. And then you can take the advantage of it the rest of New York until it starts showing you like no momentum in the market. But that's all I got for today. The market has kind of been choppy, just moving sideways, as everybody always knows. You know what I'm saying? This is just how these pairs operate. So once we get a little bit more information, and obviously tomorrow's Wednesday, so Wednesday we'll definitely have more trending patterns to be able to take advantage of within the market. But that's what I'm looking at. So we would have to see too going into tomorrow, like going into London this for tonight, how the market is playing out, and then use that information to execute tomorrow. So I'm still bullish, like I said. I haven't changed my opinion, even with I haven't changed my analysis, even with the market pushing down, but it hasn't been violent like March. So we're not seeing nothing like March. I know that. Well, March we were expecting to sell. So we're not seeing nothing like March. Which I'm glad. So I'm still bullish overall. So I'm not changing anything on my analysis until the market shows me something. But I did point out those areas where the market, specifically S&P, could push down to. US 30 if we were to push down, obviously I would see it coming down. I would probably say back to this previous high because technically that would be support. I don't think it's going to blow through this, and if it is going to blow through this, it's going to be a fake out. It's going to push down, probably strong, probably to some area that we ain't pay attention to. And you're going to be like, why wasn't I looking at that? You know what I'm saying? So I think that if it does push down to these areas, it's going to be like a fake out, which it draws at maybe 100% of this candle right here because that's an imbalanced candle, and then push the market up. But that's if, the market decides to push down, which right now I'm not convinced that we're pushing down. So, but we'll know, you know what I'm saying? We'll know when we're ready to push down because the market will start building resistance, not consolidation like you see, because I know a lot of us, we see consolidation and we assume it's resistance. Not a market, excuse me, a market will show you resistance, you know what I'm saying? It'll show you resistance once it forms it. Like we can kind of make sense of it pretty easy. You know what I'm saying? Not to mention like the trend, but we're up. So there's no reason for us to be thinking that the market is selling. You can take your sells. Like, I'm not stopping anybody from like taking or counter trading, but for me, I'm not doing that. I'm only looking for the buy positions. But that's all I got for everyone today. Appreciate everybody for joining today's session. And if you're tuning into this video on YouTube, make sure you hit that like button, comment, and subscribe. I definitely appreciate everybody that's been helping the channel grow. We are growing. You're definitely going to start seeing us travel to neighboring cities, and then, maybe we'll end up in your city. But this is Antoine Farrar. I'll catch everybody on another video with Digital Goatz Academy. I hope everybody has a successful trading week. Peace.